The UN Security Council met behind closed doors for an emergency session this afternoon. The meeting was held to discuss Israel's war against Hamas and its Sunday night airstrike in Gaza that unfortunately included some civilian deaths. But now keep in mind, these meetings are taking place after almost every major Israeli military action in Gaza has already taken place. So today's session, frankly, appears unlikely to produce any notable response from the council. But does this all aid and give fuel to the growing movement that is trying to prevent Israel from finishing the job to eliminate Hamas? Well, joining me now to discuss this and more is Congressman Nathaniel Moran. He serves on 3 House committees, including the Foreign Affairs Committee and the Committee on Education and Workforce. He represents the 1st Congressional District of Texas. Congressman Moran, welcome back to Washington Watch. Great to have you.
Hi, Jody. Great to be with you again today.
Well, let me begin, Congressman, first of all, just by saying we all are watching the severe storms and the outbreak across Texas over the weekend. And even today, places all across Texas are being pounded. And I just want you to personally know that many are praying for you. We here at FRC are, and for the great people of Texas. And Godspeed to you, your family, and everyone in harm's way today.
Thank you, Jody. I appreciate the prayers, and the folks in Texas do as well. I was with an emergency response team on Saturday morning after one of the first flurries of storms came through, and we've got extraordinary first responders that are doing what they can, and our governor's doing what he can as well. But these are certainly tragic days for a lot of families.
They really are. Well, listen, I know you're probably busy with a lot of that, so thank you for joining us today on Washington Watch. Let's jump into this whole Security Council issue. Reports indicate that several members of various nations of the Security Council, they're pushing the council to enforce the recent International Court of Justice ruling regarding Israeli operations in Rafah. What in the world could this entail, if anything, for that matter?
Yeah, it's shameful that the United Nations would take this stand, that the International Court of Justice would try to put forward their belief as to what a sovereign nation should do in defense of a terrorist attack. And that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about trying to substitute the UN's judgment for the judgment of Israel on how they should defend their boundaries and how they should defend their people. And that's simply shameful and unacceptable. We should not be encouraging that at all. We should be standing with Israel. And especially in this moment when we know that the 4 strongest battalions left in Hamas are there, they're ready to engage, and we need to finish the job. We need to allow Israel to finish the job that they started and to cut these terrorists out of that region of the world.
Yeah, it really just seems to me, it's more than just seems to me, it appears apparent that while Israel is waging a war to defeat Hamas, these international leaders are literally making excuses for terrorists. Is that your perspective in this?
Certainly, that is my perspective. And it shouldn't be really a surprise to anybody that's been watching the United Nations throughout. When we see what UNRWA and their connections were to Hamas and the terrorist attacks on October the 7th, they had people that were actually embedded with Hamas that were part of UNRWA, the relief organization through the United Nations that's supposed to be the civilian relief for instances like this. They have tons of Hamas sympathizers that are part of that organization. That's why we're trying to cut out funding for UNRWA. That's why, frankly, there needs to be a total dissection from the United Nations of that organization and say we need to start again. And frankly, we need to ensure that the sovereignty of the nations, of democratic nations around the world like the United States and Israel, are not undercut by international organizations like the United Nations that are trying to displace our sovereign decisions.
Great point, because we likewise have been following that with UNRWA. You know, and then you have another layer. For example, today you have nations like Ireland, Norway, Spain. They formally recognized a Palestinian state, a state that does not exist. and yet they formally recognize it. What kind of message does this send to Hamas and to other terrorist organizations? What are they? How are these terrorists emboldened with a message like this?
Well, that's the word I wanted to use, is emboldened. It actually supports their mission. When you look at a group of individuals and say to them, okay, yeah, you're terrorists and you have behaved in a way that is unbecoming of any morality in this world, but we're going to recognize your group of individuals with statehood when there is no state. And that's what's surprising to me. I know this is a trend among the Europeans right now, but I would suggest this is totally an erroneous road to go down, because there is no state of Palestine, and we cannot simply recognize a state that does not exist. When you simply ask questions like, well, who's in charge? Well, those questions can't be answered. Is it Hamas? Is it the Palestinian Authority? Is it the PLO? Who is it that's in charge there of this state that has been so-called recognized in existence? It simply is a road that we should not go down. Maybe we do need to have a discussion about a two-state solution. Now, I don't think it's that time to do that. I think we need to get through with vetting out these terrorists and eradicating the Hamas terrorists in the region, and then we can have some discussions about how to make the region stable long term. But right now, the goal is eradicate the terrorists. But without having those discussions, how can you simply say, well, we're going to recognize a state when, as you say, Jody, it doesn't exist?
Yeah, there's no leaders, there's no geographic location, there's no laws. I mean, it says it totally does not exist, and yet they're recognizing it. It just seems so upside down, and it ultimately just applies pressure to Israel. If I can, real quickly, we've only got a couple of minutes left, but I want to switch gears. There were some reports yesterday that were saying the Biden administration has pressed some of our allies not to confront Iran for further increasing its stockpile of uranium that apparently they have enriched to near weapon grade levels. Of course, the Biden administration is denying this, but you serve on the Foreign Affairs Committee. Your reaction to all this?
The one red line that we can never let Iran cross is becoming a nuclear capable country. We cannot allow them to get nuclear weapons. I think this is, again, a misjudgment by the international community to try to, and by the Biden administration to not apply pressure where pressure is needed. We need to be strategic with the way we handle Iran. We need to increase our sanctions, but frankly, it might be the time for some very targeted, very precise military action to ensure that Iran does not become capable of a nuclear weapon. I understand that they've increased it by nearly 20 kilograms with enriched uranium here just in the last few months. Could have up to the potential of maybe 3 nuclear weapons. If that were the case, can you imagine if it's not Israel, who's their other target? It's the United States. That's who they're going to target. We cannot allow them to become.
Great point.
We cannot allow them to become a nuclear power.
Representative Moran, thank you so much. And by the way, thank you for voting no on the U.S. Financing for Iran Act. We appreciate that.